And we have Ricardo Rodríguez with us, and he is the leader of YWAM Chile, pioneer of Chile, pioneered many different things. And he's writing a book on biblical worldview. So we're going to ask him some things about this interesting topic. So tell us, what is a biblical worldview? What does that mean?
Well, a biblical worldview, saying that in simple terms, is to see the reality through the biblical principles. The biblical worldview perspective means that God is the beginning, the center, and the end. The opposite is the humanistic point of view, that is when the human being is the beginning, the center, and the end. That is, in very simple terms, what is the difference between biblical and humanistic worldview.
And then did you see in yourself a change, like many years ago, where did you have more of a humanistic worldview and change at all, or
in my own life?
In your own life?
Yeah, of course. I have seen from my own life. I knew that the Lord was the center, but one thing is to say that and to define that for your personal life or even for your family life. Other thing is to define that for every area of your life. For example, what is the difference between a history teacher with a humanistic point of view and a historian teacher or history teacher from the biblical worldview? Totally different. Yeah. But today, the teachers, the Christian teachers and the atheist teachers are the same. Why? Because they were educated in the same university, and the university is a humanistic university. Then we need to challenge the ideas, to change paradigms, to change mindsets. This is the key thing. What is history from the humanistic point of view? Is the narration, to tell all the facts of the human beings through time, along the time. I don't know how to say that. What is the biblical point of view of history? Is to tell or to narrate facts. Narrate is a good term. Narrate facts of God and the human being. It's not the facts of the human beings. It's God with the human beings. Then we are going to have a totally different perspective of history.
What would be an example of that in history?
The heroes are not the human beings.
Yeah.
The hero is God. And that's very important to interpret history, because sometimes we say, okay, this guy was a terrible guy, and this guy is a hero. We select the people and we put in boxes. Hero, and we say in Spanish, villanos, okay? The bad guys and the good guys. But sometimes the good guys were also bad. This is the real history.
Yeah.
Now, the Bible tells us that. David was a hero, but he was an adulterous man and he was a killer. He was not a real hero. The real hero was God. When he was linked with God, then he was a hero. When we fall apart God, he was a bad guy. This is the thing. Then we can see history in different way. Okay, who is the center of history? Another thing, we see, talking about history again, that some nations were very cruel with other nations. And we say, our conclusion is, Spain was very cruel in Latin America. But looking at the situation from the biblical point of view, God uses nations to punish other nations. This is a totally different approach, Now, Spain was also punished for God, because the same century that they conquered America, they also were punished. They were in
bankruptcy.
In 3 times during that time.
Mm.
Even with all the gold that they stole, still they were very poor, And the empire, the Spanish Empire, fell down in 1588. It was the century, the most important century from Spain, and they fell down, and then never raised up again. Then we have to see justice in God through history, and we can. Well, I have many examples of that. Then it's very important, worldview perspective. Worldview perspective also had consequences. For example, the Nazi movement was inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche, his ideas. That means ideas, that Nietzsche, his book, Así hablaba Zaratustra was spoken, something like that in English, and in the last edition, he couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted to buy the book. And he only printed 40 books. Nobody wanted to buy it. But when he died, the Nazis bought his papers. And he were inspired by his idea that people were not accepting those ideas when he was alive. Ideas became facts. Ideas became historical events. That's the problem with ideas. That's why we have to evangelize ideas. Not only people, evangelize ideas.
And of course, beyond education, there's education, but also there is the media, there is sports, there is politics, there is all these different areas that we want Christians to impact. Where have you seen Christians go into those areas and impact them, or even seeing today?
Well, in the past, we have many examples. William Wilberforce abolished slavery in Great Britain. He was a very committed Christian. Henry Dunant founded Red Cross, and the Christians were the first that abolished the assassination of babies that were born with some problems, like Down syndrome or things like that, or babies that were born deaf, that they or very weak. They were killed in Greece and the Roman Empire. But Christians changed that in the year 374. They changed the law. And this is amazing what they did. They supreme the Roman circus, where the gladiators were fighting each other and killing each other. The Christian finished with that in the year 395. They created hospitals. They abolished the Roman circus, the place that people were killed, and they created hospitals, and the people could be saved. That was in the year 369 with Basilio, who was a Christian who created the first hospital inspired in the word hospitality. Hospital comes from hospitality, and this is a Christian principle. And when we see the missionary work, many of hospitals, and the first hospitals in places like India or China, they were begun by Christians, in places like that. Why? Because hospitality was very key, very important. And Fabiola was the first that created the first hospital in Rome in the year 390. All the hospitals come from those two hospitals, Basilio Hospital and Fabiola's Hospital, one in the east and one in the west. And, Christians, they created the universities. They created the preschools. they were really a tremendous, they did a tremendous change in the societies in different areas. Florence Nightingale, she created the career of nursing. She did a tremendous job. And, well, Robert Reich, he created the Sunday schools. And Lutero created the schools supported by tax, public schools. And, well, many of those things were created, most of those things were created by Christians. Then we don't have to change. We have to continue doing the same things, transforming societies, changing society. Now, what is the key today? Let me expand myself a little bit to explain this thing. During the Reform, religion was permeating, influencing all the areas of society. The Catholic Church was involved in poetry, literature, arts, education, politics, economy, social, in all the areas. When there was a revival in the church through the Reform with Lutero, the change in the church produced automatically a change in the other areas of society. It was automatically. Why? Because the church, religion, was involved in every area of society. Today, it's not like this. Today, religion is like a closet, it's there in the darkness or totally isolated of other areas. Then, a revival in the church doesn't mean that it's going to be a revival in economy. Because today is not like the time of the Reform. Can you understand me why I'm saying that? Then we will need a revival in the church, for the church, a revival in the economy, probably in a bank, in the universities. We need that means in education, or in a high school. We need a revival in the arts. We need a revival in communication. We need a revival in many areas.
What are some examples of people who've gone into those areas now who have influenced?
Well, there are many. For example, one of our students who did the School of Biblical Worldview Perspective, she's a teacher in the university in Lima, Peru. She teaches biology, molecular biology. It's very top. And she wanted to serve the Lord with all her heart, and she wanted to be a pastor. And she said, well, this is my secular job, but I want to serve the Lord. When she understood that she could be a missionary in education, her paradigm changed, her mindset. And she began to say, no, I can be a missionary here, because pastors can't enter in the university, but I'm here. And she began to preach the gospel, teaching the cell. Teaching the incredible. Many students are receiving the impact of her teaching, and the university has given her a prize because her way of teaching is totally new. The secular university, the atheist university, gave her a prize. Can you imagine that? And she is serving the Lord with all, is very enthusiastic, is totally excited about what is she doing at the university. Then, this is a very clear example, But we have another missionary who is doing sports. And he went to India, Miguel Angel, and he learned how to play cricket. And he came to Chile, he began to teach cricket. And now, when he was teaching cricket, he went to the very poor areas of the society. Here in Chile, only the high upper class plays that. Okay, but he went to the lower class, and he taught cricket, and the high class invited this school to play together. You know, they did the championship. Well, most of the players became Christians. But the good thing now is that Miguel Angel last year, because we are beginning this year, in 2020, he was elected as the president of the National League of Cricket in Chile. He's the president. And you know what is he going to do? He's going to teach in the schools cricket, using as mentors and tutors Christians. That's a powerful way to take the gospel to the area of sports. And I can tell many things. Now, there are two keys there. One, we need to challenge the ideas. To evangelize education is not only to evangelize the students, the teachers, and the directors of the school. We have to do that. But also we have to evangelize the idea of education. We have to change the idea of education, the mindset. Education from the humanistic point of view is to transmit knowledge. From the biblical point of view is to transmit life. And life means faith, like 2 Peter 1:5 said, faith, virtue, knowledge. Three things. Faith, virtue, knowledge. Not only knowledge. Now this is the approach we have to have for education, is to change the concept of education. That is to evangelize the idea. Well, to understand and to transform a society, we have to change the idea of every area of society. We have to change the idea of arts. We have to change the area of politics. Let me give you a testimony. I was praying to the Lord about to disciple a politician. And there is a problem with prayer, that the Lord responds it. This is a big problem. Two or 3 weeks later of my prayer, a guy came to me and told me, you know, the chief of the government of a very important city in Chile became a Christian alone. Nobody preached to her. And she needs somebody to disciple her. Could you do that? And I did. I'm doing that for the last 5 years with my wife. And this is the interesting thing. One day, this chief of government came to me and told me, Ricardo, the Lord told me I'm a corrupt person. And I asked her, well, why, you are receiving bribes? Or... No. The Lord told me that to rule, to gain votes is a corruption. I have to rule, to govern, to serve the people. It was a total revelation for her. And she gathered all her assistants, 80, and she told them, I have used you, I have controlled you, I have manipulated you. It doesn't matter anything of your family, it doesn't matter for me. I didn't care of that. But I want to tell you, I repent of that. Now, first will be God, second your family, third your work. And I use you. I'm not going to use you anymore, because we are going to serve the people, not to control the people. We are not ruled for power. We are ruled for service. And there was a tremendous change there. This is a very key thing, very, very simple thing that we can change. we need to change the ideas, but also we need to create models, new models. Like I'm talking about, the models I'm telling you. We have to do that. That means change ideas and create models. And if that model is successful, we can share the model with many other people to tell, this is working, this is working. For example, now we are doing a project of agriculture to feed the poor, at the parcela. We see, if we are successful, we can share that thing with many other people. We are creating a school. If we are successful, we can show the model to other people. Two things, change ideas, create models, new models.
So how can we get a better biblical worldview?
Well, first of all, studying the Bible. If we are going to have a biblical worldview perspective, we need to study the Bible. But let me tell you something. Traditionally, we have considered the Bible as a book of religion, of faith. But we have to change our way of thinking also. The Bible is a book of life, not a book of religion. When we understand that, we study the Bible with a different perspective. For example, if I'm an educator, I will be studying the Bible, trying to find all the principles of education. If I'm a politician, I will find all the principles of politics or economy. I'm now studying the Bible in the area of justice and economy. And I can see how many ideas we have that they are not from the Lord. They are not biblical. They are not bad. But sometimes we have called biblical something that are not biblical. That is part of our culture, or those are part of our way of thinking, but it's not necessarily biblical. And some others that are very biblical, we ignore them totally because our culture or even our personal background don't let us to see the thing. It's interesting. For example, do you know how many times the word justice is in the Bible? Wow, it's incredible. I never saw that. It's more than that. I never heard a preaching about justice. I have heard preachings about that God is righteousness, is just, is fair, about God. But between us, between human beings, it's incredible the amount of verses that I never saw before. And that changed your mind because you are studying in that particular area. But same with economy, same with education, same with arts. Genesis 4 talking about the creation of instrument is in Genesis 4. At the beginning of the Bible, arts is talking about arts. Arts looks like very little sinful thing, but it's in the creation of the instruments, it's in Genesis chapter 4. Wow, at the beginning of the creation almost, Then you can see things that never saw before. Then that's why it's so important to see the Bible as a book of all life and to see the principles, to study the principles. I'm discovering a lot of things, The last thing I have discovered is when a state is very powerful, it will cost you a lot. For example, when Saul was designated king, they had before of Saul, they had very little state. They were ruled by judges. The judges didn't receive tax, they didn't have an army, it was very simple. But they wanted to have a king. And the Lord told them, Don't do that, because the king is going to take your land. You will have to pay taxes to him. He's going to use your son, your daughters. He's going to use your grain. He's going to ask you for interest. And they say, no, we want king. Okay. And after 4 kings, the kingdom was divided. And you remember why? Because the king, YWAM, wanted for the people pay very high taxes. That was the real thing. They didn't want to pay so high taxes because they were paying a lot of taxes with Solomon for all the construction that he did, And YWAM wanted to increase taxes, not to diminish, but increase taxes. And the kingdom was broken.
Broken, yeah.
It's impressive, This is a principle that we can apply today. And on the other hand, we have to apply principles of justice, that people don't say anything, It's principles of what is justice, what is the concept of property in the Bible. Well, it's some of the things that I'm finding, discovering in the Bible, and that is an exciting book, an exciting book. That is, I can't stop reading the Bible now. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ricardo. That was very interesting, and I'm very inspired to now read the Bible more for biblical worldview in different areas. Let's all do that and see how we can influence this world, both with the gospel message for individuals, but also influencing the world in the different areas for God.
David, I call that the gospel indie structural. Indie because it's directed, focusing the individual, and structure because it's also focused changing unfair structures. Indie structural gospel. Indie structural. Indie for individual, structure for structures. Probably in English there is a more appropriate term, but it's what I say today.